Hey marketers, have you ever tried to launch a bold marketing campaign only to have compliance shut it down? Today's guest, Anthony Morell, knows that dance all too well. With over a decade in high regulation industries like finance and payments, he's mastered the art of marketing with creativity and control. From building community on LinkedIn to mentoring young men off the clock, Anthony shares how being present both online and in life is the secret to real impact. Whether you're B2B or B2C, you're going to want to hear this one. Hey there, I'm Joanna Bowser, the Director of Marketing at ClearVoice. Welcome to ClearVoice Mic Marketers in Conversation. Today, I am passing the mic over to Anthony Morell. He is the Senior Manager of Digital Marketing at the Merchant Risk Council. So let's jump in and see where the conversation takes us. Hey, Anthony, welcome to our video conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here. I was super excited when I got the invite. This is my first time, although I've been in marketing 10 plus years. So I am so excited to be here and just get this chat going.
Absolutely. Have you ever hosted or is this your first time doing either side?
This is my first time on both sides.
Oh, sweet. Well,
Yeah.
we're going to have a great conversation today. I've read your bio, I've read your LinkedIn. I know you have over a decade of marketing experience to sort of for us to dive into today. So it's going to be a really great conversation. I'm really excited. All right. Well, we're going to start with an easy question today to kick us off. So I know I gave an intro of you, your title, and the company you work for, but I'm curious about what you do in marketing. You know, such a big field. So where do you sit? What do you focus on in today's job, and then even in the past as well?
Initially, my career in marketing started out as a social media coordinator, in which I worked at. I've kind of always been in I like to say, the heavy, regulated, legalistic industries with insurance and finances, and I'm now in the payments industry. I started out as a social media, so I did a lot of creative. I actually started out wearing a lot of hats. What now I'm happy that I wore those hats. Initially, I was like very overwhelmed with events and just connecting to different departments, trying to please everyone as far as like the representation on social media, growing the social media followers, keeping up with those reports and those analytics. Currently, my role has developed a lot from just being that social media person. Now I am, like you said earlier, senior manager of digital marketing, which for me at the MRC consists of I'm responsible for our email channel. So that's the build, the UTMs, the reporting, everything that goes out for our communications is executed through me. We are specifically on LinkedIn, and my focus there is building the community. That was something I noticed that we just needed. They had a lot of fans, and it was a great opportunity for me to step in and use my skills to connect with people, and then continue to keep them loyal. You're right. Make sure they're happy, make sure we're happy, and kind of bring that B2B into a kind of a personal space.
Yeah, that's really interesting about just your journey and the fact that you've been in a kind of a high compliance space for the entirety of your career. I'm curious, I'm just going to start here. I'm curious how that is like, are there handcuffs there with compliance, or does the box actually free you a bit to be more creative in certain areas? Like, what is that dance like as a marketer?
Yeah, it's definitely a dance for sure. I think the biggest thing was that because it was global, we always had different states and different countries we had to be aware of that had different regulations as far as marketing. I guess the approval process sometimes is very extraneous. And so that just means I had to learn how to jump through many different hoops, work with a lot of different personalities, be able to actually look at key points that were important to them, right? They were important for our marketing piece, but as well as important to them, so those things wouldn't go overlooked.
Sure. So for our finance marketers that are tuning in, or anybody that's in kind of that high compliance marketing role, what are some of the things you put in, you know, across the years as you, I mean, I hear you definitely have different stakeholders, not just your end user, your buyer, sort of your consumer stakeholder, but you have internal stakeholders you have to sort of meet as well as far as what they want. So yeah, what are some practical things that you put in place to really help yourself smooth those things through the compliance, you know, gauntlet, if you will?
Yeah. So early on, it was rough. I'll just be honest. It was rough, but the great thing about it being rough is that you can learn how to smoothen things out, right? And so I started to learn how the specific thing that those stakeholders looked at. like what is like really heavy important for them, what are they looking at specifically. And so
Mhm.
even when I was getting things wrong, I was able to learn like, okay, so this is, let me create these, I did checklists. So I know if it's going to this stakeholder, I know they're looking at these three or four points. And let me go ahead and look at that, whether that's through the copy, whether that's the copy being cohesive with the graphic and making sure that message is all bringing everything together. So really my technique was to create those different checklists because I knew how I had to learn who I was working with. Outside of that, I had to learn the rules, right? So
Right.
I did my own homework as well. It wasn't just me like I'm in this position and all right, poof, go learn everything. So it was like me taking some time on my own to like
Right.
learn the different state regulations and how that affected our ads.
Sure. No, that's really interesting. And I think too, I mean, one of the things I've learned across my career, because I've worked in some industries that have compliance requirements as well. ClearVoice, not as much so, but we do work with customers as well that have compliance. And the other thing too is like the people that you have to go to for compliance and approval are not, it's like it feels sometimes adversarial, but really we're all on the same team.
Right. Yeah.
And remembering like, hey, I know legal's being legal right now, and like it's really to make sure that we're all protected and being able to sort of appreciate the others
Exactly. Yeah.
a little bit in
Exactly.
there.
I had to learn that. I definitely had to learn that.
Yeah, because it does feel sometimes where you're like, but my creative, my idea, you know? And they're like,
Yeah, you have so many ideas, you know, so many wonderful ideas. That was definitely something that was learned throughout over the years because it was just like you're saying, that does can sometimes be tension between departments. There was a case where I was corrected on an email. This was years and years ago. Corrected on the email, but I was happy that I was corrected on the email because there was also a case not at the company I was working for, but there was a case in which an email was sent and that company was sued,
mm,
and that brought perspective to me because I'm like, yeah, I have my great, wonderful, sometimes pretty ideas, and I want them to come across great, and I want them to help the company and get praise and everything. But at the same time, they're protecting the company as
sure.
well as myself because that is not something I would want to be responsible for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm curious, in the recent years, what are some of the big marketing trends that have really either stood out to you as like an expert in marketing or that you're dealing with kind of on a daily basis? So, a big one for ClearVoice is obviously AI. That's a big one for a lot of
Yeah.
marketers. But I'm curious for you, especially given in your industry, is there anything unique to your industry and the type of marketing you do that really stands out right now?
Yeah, I think it's becoming more personal. And I think that's where, because I am primarily B2B, so it's like I'm working with trying to get appeal to organizations, executives, senior level people, to the business, the decision makers that are trying to come in and be like, hey, I want our company to work with your company. So I think the shift is getting away from some of that stiffness, which is, when you talk B2B, you talk super professional, that's just
Yeah.
how it's been and what it is. But I think that's shifting to be more personal, and I think a part of the reason is because when you're attracting these executive levels and these senior levels, they may not always understand the complete value of your company or the value of marketing that's being presented to them. But that is your job, right? That is our job to get them to understand that. But at the same time, in there is our job to connect with them. So it's like, how can I connect what I'm doing and what our company is with their values? And so I feel that there's the shift to be more personable, but that tension of not too comfortable, because
Right.
you don't want it's not like just what's up, friend. You're talking.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. I always kind of put myself in the shoe of the person that's like picking their kid up from school or they're standing on the
Mm,
sidelines of soccer and just trying to like sneak in some emails and sort of like how do I talk to that person professionally because we're also B2B, but also like in a way that's connected so it doesn't just sort of like feel like a sales email, if you will, or kind of like this
right.
like sterile thing communication that's going out there. So it's interesting that you're experiencing the same thing, even in the finance space, right?
Yeah.
Because again, a more buttoned up space than market content marketing
For
is.
sure. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So I think we talked about compliance and we talked about sort of like personalization and what you're working on now. You mentioned something earlier in the conversation about representation, especially, as you were coming up in the social media space. What shifts have you seen when it comes to representation in the different channels and social media, and even in other marketing channels as well, that's really stood out to you and that marketers could really think about as we continue to go forward too?
The biggest thing, and it's probably something I learned in college, and it's as simple as be where your audience is, right? Especially specifically in social, where you have people they're trying to be in every single platform. And
Mm,
I've experienced that where we were asked to, hey, make the Instagram, make the Facebook, make the TikTok. And it's like, but how are we going to maintain that if our audience isn't there, if we don't have the content to build and even have people gravitate to us in that? And so I think being where your audience is super important. It's pivotal because not every executive is going to be on Instagram, but they might be on LinkedIn, right? And
right.
so we're heavily on LinkedIn because companies and executive level, senior levels are there. Those are where the decision makers are. Whether that's completely like, still professional versus casual, but it's still like where they can see our brand and see our name. The biggest thing there is just like the generations. It's
Mm.
it's a generational thing, right? Like I'm not creating TikTok for for this specific payments industry. Now, could I do something creative and it end up being cringe to to Gen Xers? You know what I mean? Like we could
Absolutely.
try that, but let's just be more strategic about where we are and where our audience is.
Yeah, it's really about social networking and community building versus social billboarding, where you're just kind of spewing things out there.
Just throwing content out.
Although I do now want to see a TikTok video series from you guys where you're just doing like a stupid sketch or something.
Now I know that I could do it. And I'm like, how would I be able to keep this thing up? Because creating content is a lot.
Yeah, no,
It is a
a
lot to
hundred.
keep
Well,
up
that's
with.
something that we think about too, right? Is there's so many channels and there's limited resources, and if you're not going to really crush TikTok,
Yeah,
use
yeah,
like the the bro language on that, the online bro language. But if you're not going to really do it justice, then don't. It's almost like better to not be there.
exactly. Yeah.
When we invited you to be on this conversation, we asked you to give us some information, just about your background and things like that. And one of the things that really stood out to me is the work that you do on a personal level. And so I know we even prepping, coming into right before we hit record, talked about you have two sons. And I know that you are a mentor in your local community. And so I just want to hear a little bit more about what about that, right? Kind of a broad question, but also I'm curious, the lessons that you take developing these personal relationships in your local
Mhm.
community. Is there anything that you sort of like bring back over as a marketer
That's a good question.
as you develop campaigns, as you think about how you talk to your audience? Is what do you learn in your personal experience that you bring over? So that's a big question. So feel free to dive in. But I'm just really curious about all of that.
Yeah. So start off, I have two toddler boys, 4 and about to be literally 2 this Friday. Love them bunches, right? And so I've the way I was raised and the way I've grown
Mhm.
as a guy, it became pivotal for me to show up for other young men because I do believe in being sometimes what you didn't have, and then go ahead and start in those things. And so, like my connection to the mentoring I do for the high school football team here is just that I go in on Fridays, and we're actually starting to develop something on Tuesdays in which I would speak to them about Jesus and speak to them about just the character of Jesus. So that they would have the opportunities to learn about the Bible, to be developed as young men, to know that they're not out here on their own, whether they have family or family's not with them. And so my passion is there just with young guys because I want young guys to experience what I'm experiencing now. I hope that they could experience it before the older age. And so I do that, and I also love football. I played football in college, grew up playing football, so I have a natural sports connection,
Sure.
which works very well with talking to teams. As far as the building the relationships, I feel like that portion is something I take into probably every single one of my relationships, whether professional or not. And it's just the fact of being present, always trying to be present. Because the more present I am, the more I can show up for someone. If you're having a discussion with me and I can't even be present, then I'm not going to hear what you're saying. Not truly, right? not truly. I can, kind of, oh, cool story, bro, that type of deal. But
Right.
but to like truly listen, being present in all of my relationships, and I think that that has helped me with the community building at the MRC, because the fans, they already had great amount of fans, but I'm going out there on LinkedIn. I'm engaging with them. I'm making sure they, and it's so simple. You can make sure they're known just by engaging through comments, or when we post and we tag or reply, or even just giving a reaction. Letting them know that, hey, we are a global company, but you are very important to us,
Sure.
not just a business, but who you are and what you bring to the table.
I'm curious. I mean, what you're talking about with respect to listening is so powerful, and I think we live in such a time of just like exponential change, and things are moving so fast.
Yeah,
And I'm guilty of this too as a marketer. We forget to stop and listen,
yeah, yeah,
right, and have a conversation, whether that's a conversation over a survey or again in comments or a message. So I'm curious, like, do you have any ways that you sort of build in those touch points of listening in your programmatic approach to marketing? Or like, is there any sort of tactics or techniques that you use that you might share with other marketers who are moving really fast and maybe don't
yeah.
pause to dial in?
Yeah, I think the one of the greatest ways is to use a platform that allows you to monitor all your comments and all the engagement. Because I typically start my day on social, honestly, because I know that there's been engagement overnight or in the evening, maybe when I've been off.
Sure.
So I start my day with that social, and going through engagement, going through those comments, and seeing where I can, put another message out there, where I can repost some content that was connected to our company or one of the speakers from our company. So it's always that, listen first, I guess, is my mentality, and that is hard. Like you're saying, as a social marketer, that is hard because you have a lot of things to create. You have a lot of things coming at you to ask to be created.
Sure.
So I think there's I've learned to pause. I actually have in my calendar, do social listening.
That's
And so
very
yeah, that has been super beneficial for me, because like you said, we can get so many notifications that things could get overlooked, and we're just kind of flying through the day with all the content we have to create.
Sure, sure. That's such a, I mean, it sounds so simple to put it in your calendar, but if it's not in the calendar, if it's not in your existence system, it doesn't exist, right? If
Right.
you're trying to let your brain to remember to do something that you probably don't really want to do anyway, which is slow down and do the listening. It's like not a natural thing for a lot of marketers because it's like grow, grow, go, go.
Yeah, yeah,
So
for
you
sure.
got to really make this space for it. So that's such a great sort of takeaway. And I'm also curious, how do you feed that back into the organization? Like, do you share the things that you hear, in the ecosystem? How do you share that through the different teams so that they're getting the benefit of your work as well as they're developing new content or new programs or new products?
Honestly, I'm fortunate to have a great manager. And so that's something we talk about through our one-on-ones. So some of that is kind of going deep digging into the analytics
Sure.
and having those reports, especially from a professional standpoint of, like, this is what I've done, this is how I've reached my goals. Being able to have those numbers to show that, you always we love to put a lot of things out there, but like with numbers always help us back that up. And then on the other end of that is our Slack channel. So we have a couple of different Slack areas in which I can get. So say like there was a great comment on one of our e-learning courses, I can share that with the education team, and I can
Sure.
share that to the entire company. So they see that, like, hey, when we create this content and we put it out there on LinkedIn, people are going to these courses and doing it. And they're seeing the format, they're looking at it. It matters. Us posting it matters because they're responding through LinkedIn. They're responding through social. And so putting that out there, even milestones of followers, of milestones of, we had our 10 years and things like that. So it's just, you do communicate. Don't be afraid to communicate that.
Sure. Sure. That kind of goes back to 360 relationships, right? Not just with your buyers or your customers online, but the different stakeholders internally. And, really, I mean, as the front line or like as the frontline person or, team, if you will, at
Hmm.
marketing being the tip of the spear, that feedback loop is so vital. And so it's really cool to hear that you like really you and the leader in your team really make space for that. So it's
Yeah.
not, again, an afterthought. So it's a lot of intentionality there, which is always really exciting to hear in a marketing apparatus
Oh, for
versus,
sure. Yeah.
oh, awesome. Well, I have one or two final questions for you. I told you this would be a dance of a conversation, but over the course of your career, is there any advice, that you would give to a young marketer? Anything that you would want them to, just like a little tip or a tool that you'd want them to have as they're coming up that you learned along the way?
Two things come to mind. One is I would say don't be afraid to speak up. If you have ideas, don't be afraid to speak up. I think on the back end, obviously, is the actually implementing them, but don't be afraid to speak up to your manager about some things you may see that like, hey, if we tweak this, then this could possibly go here. Just showing that the different potentials. The other thing I would say is don't be afraid to wear too many hats early on. I think a lot of us now we're like, oh, I don't want to wear hats. I don't want to wear. But when you're entering, wearing those hats is super beneficial to learn because when you get to the level of like senior, director,
Mhm.
you have to know all the different pieces. You
Right.
can't just, be so specific that you don't know how your channel affects the other channel or how these channels are being cohesive or integrating. So I would say wear the hats. Wear the hats. Try to enjoy it. It is a lot of work when you enter for sure. It'll always be a lot of work. It's just the work just changes, right? But yeah, keep at it. Don't be afraid to use your voice and don't be afraid to wear multiple hats.
Awesome. And I love that too, because again, as to your point, as you escalate in your career and you rise up, if you don't know, like, at least how they work, how
Yeah,
other teams work, how other channels work, like, it's very difficult. There's a limit to you, right? I'm not saying you have to be an expert
right,
at all of them. I have times where people are like, well, can you go in and set this ad up? I'm like, I haven't touched ads in like 8 years, but I understand the theory. So like I
right.
could,
Yeah.
but like I don't know how Meta has changed their interface in the
Oh,
past.
they,
I know, right? But I'm like, but I still understand it, right? I still understand how ads affect SEO and how social now is going to even more so be affecting SEO and paid and all of that, and how that ecosystem plays together. So I really love the idea of like wear as many hats as you can early on, so you at least have some fluency with those
yeah.
different tools and channels. That's really such great advice.
Yeah, for me early on, I just kind of had the goal. Well, I definitely have like a strong like learner's mindset. And so
Mm,
I had the goal to be versatile. I didn't want to be, you know, the one the one email wonder or the
right,
ones the one
exactly.
viral person you want to come to or anything like that.
Yeah,
I wanted to know as much as I could and how the impact of my work was impacting other channels and vice versa, of course.
sure. So my last question for you today is: you said you played football in college.
Yes.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Evangel University.
Okay, I went to the University of Oklahoma, which is a big football school, and I was like, if you went to UT or one of those other places,
Oh my.
but no rivalry here, so we're all good. I just had to check. Awesome. Well, Anthony, thanks so much for your time today. Thanks for joining us for our Marketers and Conversation series. You have provided such great value today, especially with respect to the up and coming marketers. I'm really excited to hear the feedback on the conversation we had from our social listening as well. We'll certainly share that with you too. I always like to hand the mic back over one final time for any final thoughts, and also let us know where we can find you online if anybody wants to connect with you.
Yeah, my final thought would just be go for it all. Don't be afraid to pursue the things that you want, no matter how difficult that is. And as far as finding me online, you can find me on LinkedIn. Right now, I'm primarily on LinkedIn, dropping jokes, dropping inspiration, but that's where I'll be.
Awesome. And I will say that's how we found you too, right? We connected with you there, and I know you and Taylor, our head of constants, have been exchanging messages and jokes and
Oh
memes and
yeah.
stuff like that for a while. So for those of you that don't believe LinkedIn works, please go connect with
Yes,
Anthony.
there's
It
opportunity out
works.
there.
It's a great place to network because then conversations like this happen. So, all right, awesome. So, marketing in regulated industries isn't easy, but as Anthony reminded us, it's not impossible. Know your audience, wear the hats, and use your voice. And when in doubt, be present. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you need help creating great content, visit us at www.clearvoice.com.